Alex Rodriguez never thought he was special. Growing up on New Horizon, a farming planet 3-star jumps away from anything important, he spent most of his childhood helping his parents grow vegetables in massive greenhouse domes. The planet was quiet, peaceful, and honestly pretty boring for a teenager who dreamed of seeing the galaxy. His mom worked the morning shifts tending to the tomato farms, while his dad managed the water recycling systems that kept their crops alive. Alex had 2 younger sisters who seemed perfectly happy staying on New Horizon forever, talking about taking over the family business someday. But Alex wanted something different. He just didn't know what. The Galactic Defense Academy was his. Ticket out. Every year, they offered exactly 3 scholarships to students from outer rim planets like New Horizon. Alex wasn't the smartest kid in his class, but he studied hard and managed to score just high enough to earn one of those precious spots. His parents were proud but worried. Space was dangerous, they reminded him. Pirates, alien conflicts, and mysterious diseases that could wipe out entire colonies. Why not stay home where it was safe? But Alex had made up his mind. At 18, he packed his few belongings into a single bag and took the transport ship to the academy on Kepler Station. The journey took 2 weeks, and by the time he arrived, Alex was already feeling homesick. The station was enormous, bigger than his entire hometown, with thousands of cadets from across human space. The academy was nothing like he expected. His roommate, Jake Thompson, came from a military family on Earth itself. Jake's father was a decorated captain, his grandfather had fought in the border wars, and Jake seemed to know everything about starship tactics and weapon systems before classes even started. Most of the other cadets had similar backgrounds. They talked about famous battles, discussed the latest military technology, and seemed born for this life. Alex felt completely out of place. During combat training, he was average at best. In tactical planning exercises, he often finished in the bottom half of his class. While other cadets dreamed of commanding massive warships or leading ground assaults on hostile planets, Alex found himself drawn to the xenobiology courses. He liked learning about alien plants and animals, studying how different species adapted to various planetary conditions. His instructors barely noticed him. Commander Williams, who taught advanced tactics, never called on Alex in class. Captain Peterson, who ran the combat simulations, usually assigned Alex to support roles rather than leadership positions. Alex wasn't failing, but he wasn't excelling either. He was just there. The only subject where Alex showed any real interest was Professor Chen's xenobiology class. While other cadets saw it as an easy credit, Alex genuinely enjoyed learning about the strange creatures that lived on distant worlds. He wrote his final thesis on how predator species behaved differently depending on the gravity of their home planets. It wasn't groundbreaking research, but Professor Chen gave him good marks and suggested he might have a future in planetary survey work. As graduation approached, Alex watched his classmates receive their assignments. Jake got posted to the flagship of the 3rd Fleet, a prestigious position that would put him on the fast track to becoming a ship's captain. Others received assignments to frontier defense stations, elite special forces units, or important diplomatic missions to alien worlds. When Alex opened his assignment letter, he wasn't surprised by what he found. The research vessel Pathfinder, conducting routine biological surveys in the outer territories. It was exactly the kind of assignment given to cadets who weren't quite good enough for anything else. Not dangerous enough to get him killed, but not important enough to advance his career quickly. Some of his classmates looked at him with pity. A few made jokes about him becoming a bug counter on some forgotten planet. Alex just smiled and accepted their comments. He'd learned not to expect much from life. At least he'd be off New Horizon and seeing new worlds, even if it wasn't in the way he'd originally dreamed. The night before graduation, Alex sat in his dorm room looking through his old thesis notes. He'd been studying a particular behavior, pattern he'd noticed in predator species. On high-gravity worlds, apex predators seemed to have a specific way of recognizing dominance in other species. They would approach slowly, investigate, and then either attack or submit based on some invisible signal he couldn't quite identify. Alex found this fascinating, though he couldn't explain why. His professors had dismissed it as minor observations, nothing worth pursuing further. But something about those patterns stuck with him. Maybe during his survey missions, he'd have a chance to observe more examples and figure out what was really happening. The graduation ceremony was held in the main hangar bay, with families arriving from across the galaxy to watch their children become officers. Alex's parents couldn't afford the trip from New Horizon, so he sat alone while others celebrated with their loved ones. Admiral Foster gave a speech about humanity's place among the stars, talking about how humans had earned respect through determination and courage rather than superior technology or natural advantages. Alex listened politely, not realizing that within a few months, some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy would be very interested in meeting him personally. As far as he knew, he was just a farm kid who'd managed to graduate from military academy without embarrassing himself too badly. 2 days later, Alex boarded the transport ship that would take him to his new assignment aboard the Pathfinder. He carried the same single bag he'd brought to the academy, plus a small collection of xenobiology textbooks and his thesis research. As the transport pulled away from Kepler Station, Alex pressed his face to the window and watched his old life disappear into the darkness of space. He had no idea that his real story was about to begin. 3 months aboard the Pathfinder had been exactly what Alex expected. Boring routine surveys, endless data collection, and long days cataloging plant samples that all looked the same to him. The crew was small and friendly enough, but nobody seemed particularly interested in the young survey specialist who kept to himself most of the time. Captain Torres ran a relaxed ship. Unlike the strict military atmosphere Alex remembered from the academy, life aboard the Pathfinder felt more like working for a small research company. They had their jobs to do, but nobody was shouting orders or running emergency drills every day. Alex appreciated the calm environment, even if part of him sometimes wondered if he was wasting his potential. Their current assignment had brought them to Kepler 186F, a planet that made Alex's xenobiology training finally feel useful. The world was incredible, covered in forests that glowed with their own light and filled with creatures that seemed too amazing to be real. Some of the predators were larger than the ancient dinosaurs from Earth's history, but somehow the ecosystem remained perfectly balanced. Dr. Vasquez, the ship's head scientist, was fascinated by the planet's biodiversity. She spent hours explaining to Alex how the different species had evolved together over millions of years, creating one of the most complex food chains ever discovered. Alex found himself genuinely excited about the work for the first time since leaving the academy. The team had established their base camp in what their sensors identified as a neutral zone between the territories of several large predator species. It seemed safe enough, though Dr. Vasquez constantly reminded everyone that 3 previous survey teams had lost members to the planet's dangerous wildlife. Alex made sure to always carry his emergency beacon and never venture too far from camp alone. But deadlines were deadlines, and Alex found himself falling behind on his assigned sector survey. The area he needed to cover was larger than expected, and some of the terrain was difficult to navigate with the standard equipment. When he realized he could save 2 days of work by taking a shortcut through a section marked as potentially hazardous on their maps, Alex decided to risk it. He told himself he was being careful. His bioscanner showed no immediate threats in the area, and he planned to move quickly through the zone and back to safety before any dangerous creatures noticed him. Alex had studied the behavior patterns of all known predators on the planet, and most of them avoided areas with human scent markers anyway. The shortcut took him through a dense section of the glowing forest, where the bioluminescent trees created an almost magical atmosphere. Alex was so focused on taking readings from his scanner that he didn't notice the movement in the shadows until it was almost too late. Shadowhounds. Alex recognized them immediately from the briefing materials Dr. Vasquez had shown the team. Wolf-like creatures the size of small bears with the ability to change their skin color to blend perfectly with their surroundings. Their crystalline teeth could bite through most materials, and they hunted in packs of 6 to 8 individuals. The files said they were responsible for more survey team casualties than any other species on the planet. Alex counted at least 5 of them as they emerged from the glowing undergrowth around him. His training kicked in immediately. Protocol was clear. Activate emergency beacon, retreat slowly while avoiding eye contact, and call for immediate extraction. Under no circumstances should anyone attempt to interact with shadowhounds. But something strange happened. As Alex reached for his emergency beacon, the largest shadowhound, clearly the pack leader, tilted her head and made a sound that was almost like a question. She was massive, with scars across her face that spoke of many battles, but her posture wasn't aggressive. She seemed curious. Alex froze. The other shadowhounds had arranged themselves in a circle around him, but they weren't closing in for an attack. They were just watching him with what looked like interest. The pack leader took a step closer, and Alex could see intelligence in her eyes that his textbooks had never mentioned. Against every rule he'd ever learned, Alex slowly lowered his hand away from the emergency beacon. The pack leader's ears perked up, and she took another step forward. Alex remained perfectly still as she circled him, sniffing carefully but never showing any signs of aggression. Then something incredible happened. The pack leader sat down. Just sat down in front of Alex like a well-trained dog waiting for instructions. One by one, the other shadowhounds followed her lead, settling into relaxed positions around him. Alex spent the next 47 minutes conducting the most detailed behavioral study of shadowhounds ever recorded. He observed their pack hierarchy, documented their communication methods, and recorded interaction patterns that no human had ever witnessed before. The creatures seemed genuinely interested in his presence, occasionally approaching to investigate his equipment, but never showing any hostile behavior. When Alex finally decided it was time to leave, he backed away slowly while continuing to record data. The shadowhounds watched him go but made no move to follow. The pack leader even seemed to nod slightly, as if acknowledging his departure. Back at base camp, Alex struggled to explain what had happened. Captain Torres initially suspected equipment, malfunction or some kind of contamination that might have affected the shadowhound's behavior. But when they reviewed Alex's bio readings from the encounter, they found something that made no sense. During his entire interaction with the pack, Alex's heart rate had remained completely normal. No elevation in stress hormones, no fight or flight. Response. Nothing to indicate he'd been in any danger at all. It was as if his body had somehow known the shadowhounds posed no threat, even though his mind had been terrified. Even stranger were the readings from the shadowhounds themselves. Dr. Vasquez spent hours analyzing the behavioral data Alex had collected, comparing it to every known study of predator interaction patterns. What she found was impossible to explain using current scientific understanding. The shadowhounds had been exhibiting submission behaviors. Not fear, not confusion, but the specific body language and vocalizations that predator species used when encountering a more dominant predator. They had recognized Alex as something higher in the food chain than themselves. Dr. Vasquez couldn't stop talking about it. In her 30 years of xenobiology research, she'd never seen anything like it. Shadowhounds were apex predators on their world, feared by every other species, including much larger creatures. For them to show submission to a human made no sense. According to everything science understood about predator hierarchies, Alex was equally puzzled. He'd felt strangely calm during the encounter, almost like he belonged there among the pack. When he tried to explain this feeling to Dr. Vasquez, she made detailed notes but couldn't offer any theories to explain it. Over the following weeks, Alex encountered 3 more apex predator species during his survey work. Each time, The same pattern repeated itself. Initial approach, careful investigation, then either respectful withdrawal or outright submission. A family of crystal wings, flying predators with wingspans larger than the Pathfinder itself, actually seemed to bow to Alex before soaring away. A lone Titan strider, a creature that stood 3 stories tall and was known to attack survey vehicles on sight, simply watched Alex work in its territory without showing any aggression. Dr. Vasquez began referring to it as the Rodriguez effect in her reports, though neither she nor Alex could begin to explain what was causing it. Alex found himself looking forward to these encounters, feeling more confident and comfortable around dangerous alien predators than he ever had around his fellow humans. What none of them realized was that their preliminary reports had already been flagged by multiple intelligence agencies. Within days, alien governments across the galaxy would be requesting copies of Alex's encounter logs, and 3 of the most powerful species in known space would be sending representatives to meet this unremarkable young man from a farming planet. Alex. Rodriguez was about to discover that being ordinary was the last thing anyone would ever call him again. Dr. Vasquez thought she was following standard procedure when she filed her preliminary report about Alex's encounters with the apex predators. The Terran Colonial Science Division always wanted detailed documentation of unusual xenobiology findings, even if they seemed minor. She marked the report as anomalous but non-critical and sent it through regular channels, expecting it to sit in some bureaucrat's inbox for months before anyone bothered reading it. She had no idea that the quantum communications array aboard the Pathfinder was monitored by far more than just human intelligence agencies. Within 72 hours of her report being transmitted, 3 separate alien governments had made formal requests through diplomatic channels for copies of all documentation related to Alex Rodriguez and his interactions with hostile wildlife. Tai. First sign that something unusual was happening came when Captain Torres received a priority message from Colonial Command ordering the Pathfinder to maintain its current position and prepare for the arrival of high-level diplomatic personnel. Torres had never received a priority message in his 15 years of commanding survey vessels. Most days, Colonial Command seemed to forget his ship existed. Alex was in the middle of cataloging plant samples when Dr. Vasquez found him in the lab, looking more excited and confused than he'd ever seen her. She explained that somehow, his little encounters with the local wildlife had attracted attention from the highest levels of both human and alien governments. Alex couldn't understand how that was possible. He'd just been doing his job, taking readings and observations like any other survey specialist. The first visitors arrived 3 days later. The sleek alien vessel that docked with the Pathfinder was unlike anything Alex had seen before, made of what looked like living crystal that shifted colors as it moved. Captain Torres explained that they were about to meet representatives of the Veltar hegemony, one of the 3 most powerful alien civilizations in known space. Ambassador Resonance of Truth was a being that hurt to look at directly. Its translucent, crystalline body contained swirling patterns of light that seemed to communicate emotions and thoughts independently of its harmonic speech patterns. Through their translation systems, it asked Alex detailed questions about his experiences with the predators, wanting to know exactly how he had felt during each encounter and what he had been thinking. Alex answered as honestly as he could, though he felt foolish trying to explain the strange sense of calm and belonging he'd experienced. The ambassador's light patterns grew more intense with each answer, and the harmonic frequencies it produced made the entire interview room vibrate. When Alex finished describing his encounters, Ambassador Resonance of Truth did something that shocked everyone present. The being's crystalline form began to resonate with what their translators identified as the Veltar equivalent of deep respect or acknowledgement. Through the harmonic translation, it explained that Alex exhibited what the Veltar called dominance resonance, a pheromonal and bioelectric signature that the Veltar had only observed in their highest caste members, beings who were literally bred over thousands of years to command absolute authority over lesser members of their society. Alex had no idea what that meant, but Dr. Vasquez was frantically taking notes. Ambassador Resonance of Truth continued, explaining that the Veltar, dominance caste, could walk among the most dangerous predators on any world and be recognized as natural leaders. The fact that a human from an agricultural world could display this trait was, according to the ambassador, unprecedented and deeply significant. Before Alex could fully process this information, the second delegation arrived. The Zephyrian Collective sent what they called a neural cluster drone, a disturbing creature that looked like a floating brain surrounded by mechanical appendages. The collective mind wanted to conduct deep scan analysis of Alex's neural patterns, claiming they had detected anomalous readings from their long-range sensors. The neural scan was uncomfortable, but not painful. Alex lay still while the drone's mechanical arms positioned sensors around his head, recording patterns of brain activity that he didn't understand. When the scan was complete, the collective mind's response was transmitted through speakers that made the entire ship vibrate with their synthesized voice. Alex's brain patterns matched what the Zephyrians called prime node resonance, a neural frequency they had only observed in their queen forms. These were the rare individuals within their hive society who could spawn new colonies and command absolute loyalty from thousands of drone workers. The collective mind was deeply disturbed by this discovery, as no alien species had ever exhibited prime node resonance before. Dr. Vasquez was now completely overwhelmed by the implications of what she was documenting. Two of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had just confirmed that Alex possessed biological traits that should have been impossible for any human to have. But the third delegation would prove to be the most significant of all. The Korath Empire was ancient beyond human understanding, having dominated their region of space for over 10,000 years through what they called the natural order of strength. They were apex predators in the truest sense, reptilian warriors who had never acknowledged any other species as their equals in the entire history of galactic civilization. High Huntress Talarvin arrived alone, as was the Korath custom for their most elite warriors. She was nearly 8 feet tall, covered in scales that shifted from deep green to midnight black, depending on the light. Her eyes were the color of molten gold, and when she moved, every human aboard the Pathfinder instinctively stepped back. Except for Alex. When Alex met the High Huntress in the ship's main conference room, something extraordinary happened. Instead of the aggressive posturing that Korath typically displayed when meeting other species, Talarvin performed what Captain Torres later learned was the highest honor their civilization could bestow: the recognition of apex status. The High Huntress actually lowered her head slightly when Alex entered the room, a gesture that no alien species had ever received from the Korath Empire. Through their translation systems, she declared Alex to be what they called true hunt leader, a designation that carried profound meaning in Korath society. Talarvin explained that the Korath could sense what they called the scent of the true predator in certain beings. It was an ancient recognition system that allowed them to identify others who possessed the essential qualities of an apex hunter. Throughout their 10,000-year history, they had never detected this scent in any alien species. Until now. She told Alex that his presence triggered the same instinctive responses in Korath warriors that they felt when meeting their own apex hunters, the legendary leaders who could command entire fleets through nothing more than their natural authority. The fact that a human could produce this effect was, according to High Huntress Talarvin, proof that humanity possessed hidden depths that even they had not fully recognized. Alex sat through these revelations feeling completely overwhelmed. Three of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy had just told him that he possessed traits that should have been biologically impossible. He was still the same farm kid from New Horizon who had barely graduated from the academy, but apparently he was also something that alien scientists found fascinating and alien warriors found worthy of respect. Dr. Vasquez spent days interviewing the alien representatives, trying to understand the full implications of their findings. What became clear was that Alex's encounters with the predators on Kepler 186F were just the tip of something much larger. Each alien species had encountered similar phenomena among humans before, but always dismissed them as anomalies or coincidences. Now, they were beginning to recognize a pattern. Humans from frontier worlds, agricultural colonies, and remote outposts were displaying characteristics that marked them as natural leaders to species that had evolved completely independently across the galaxy. It suggested something about human biology that even humanity itself didn't understand. As the alien delegations prepared to depart, each left Alex with the same message. He was no longer just a survey specialist on a research vessel. He was living proof of something significant about humanity's place in the galaxy, and there were powerful forces that would want to understand exactly what that meant. Captain Torres received new orders that same day. The Pathfinder was to continue its mission, but Alex Rodriguez was now classified as a person of extreme scientific and diplomatic interest. His future encounters with alien life would be monitored by the highest levels of both human and alien governments. Alex looked out at the stars that night, wondering how his simple life had become so complicated. He was about to discover that complicated was an understatement. 2 weeks after the alien delegations left the Pathfinder, Alex received the most unexpected message of his life. Admiral Foster, the same woman who had given the graduation speech at the academy, was personally coming to meet him, not sending a representative or scheduling a video call, but actually traveling to the outer rim to speak with him face-to-face. Captain Torres was nervous about hosting such high-ranking military leadership on his small research vessel. He spent days making sure everything was perfect, running cleaning protocols and updating all their systems. Alex just felt confused. He still couldn't understand why his simple encounters with alien predators had attracted so much attention from people who normally wouldn't know his name. When Admiral Foster arrived aboard her personal transport, she looked exactly like Alex remembered from the academy ceremony. Stern but fair, with the kind of presence that made people automatically stand straighter when she entered a room. But there was something different in her eyes now when she looked at Alex. Something that might have been concern or even worry. She asked to speak with Alex privately in Captain Torres's quarters. Once they were alone, Admiral Foster did something that shocked Alex completely. She activated a portable security field that would prevent anyone from listening to their conversation, then sat down across from him with an expression more serious than he'd ever seen on any military officer. "Alex," she said, using his first name instead of his rank. "What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels of government. The information I'm sharing could change how humanity sees itself in the galaxy, and it could put you in considerable danger if the wrong people learn what you are." Alex had no idea what she meant by "what you are," but he nodded for her to continue. Admiral Foster pulled out a secure datapad and showed him images that made his mind struggle to process what he was seeing. Ancient ruins on distant worlds, genetic analysis charts, and archaeological evidence that seemed to suggest something impossible. "Humanity didn't evolve on Earth," Admiral Foster said quietly. "We've known this for almost 300 years, but the information has been classified to prevent panic and social disruption. Every piece of evidence we've found suggests that modern humans appeared on Earth far too suddenly, with genetic patterns that don't match natural evolutionary development." Alex stared at the images on the datapad. Ancient stone structures that looked almost human, but clearly predated any known human civilization. genetic sequences that showed gaps and insertions that couldn't be explained by natural mutation. Archaeological sites where human-like tools had been found in layers of rock that were hundreds of thousands of years older than the accepted timeline of human development. Admiral Foster continued explaining, her voice steady but her hands slightly trembling, as she held the datapad. The evidence suggests that approximately 200,000 years ago, an unknown alien species transported early humans to Earth from somewhere else. We don't know who they were, where they came from, or why they did it. But they left behind one very specific clue. She showed Alex a complex diagram that looked like a genetic map. Hidden in human DNA is a dormant genetic sequence that we've only recently learned how to detect. It remains inactive in most people throughout their entire lives, but under specific environmental conditions, it begins to activate and produce changes in human biology that are significant. Alex was starting to understand why this conversation was classified. What kind of changes? The kind that make alien apex predators recognize you as their superior, Admiral Foster said. The kind that produce pheromone signatures matching the dominant castes of 3 completely different alien civilizations that evolved on separate worlds. The kind that suggest humans were designed to be recognized as natural leaders by any sufficiently advanced species. She pulled up more data, showing him reports from across human space. Frontier miners on asteroid colonies who could walk safely through territories controlled by dangerous alien predators. Agricultural specialists on harsh worlds who found themselves naturally commanding the respect of indigenous life forms. Exploration. Scouts who discovered that alien military units would follow their orders without question. The pattern is always the same, Admiral Foster explained. Humans from low-population frontier worlds, individuals who've experienced high-stress environments, and exposure to alien pheromone signatures. The combination seems to trigger the dormant genetic sequence, activating traits that make them naturally dominant to other species. Alex looked at his own hands, trying to process the idea that his DNA contained instructions left by an unknown alien race. How many people know about this? Very few. The discovery was made by Dr. Chen at the Lunar Genetic Research Facility about 50 years ago, but the implications were so significant that access to the information has been restricted to only the highest levels of government and military leadership. We've been quietly studying activated humans ever since, trying to understand the full scope of what we inherited. Admiral Foster showed him test results that made Alex's head spin. His genetic profile showed one of the most complete activations they had ever recorded. The stress of military training, combined with his rural background and exposure to multiple alien species, had triggered a full expression of whatever genetic gifts his ancestors had received. This explains why the alien delegations were so interested in you, she said. You're not just exhibiting random behavioral anomalies, you're demonstrating traits that were literally engineered into human DNA by beings advanced enough to predict how we would interact with species we hadn't even discovered yet. Alex stood up and walked to the small porthole, looking out at the stars. Everything he thought he knew about humanity, about himself, about their place in the galaxy, had just been turned upside down. So, our entire expansion through space, all our diplomatic successes, our ability to get along with alien species, it's not because we're naturally good at it. It's because we were programmed to make other species submit to us. That's one way to look at it, Admiral Foster said carefully. Another way is that we were given tools to survive and thrive in a dangerous galaxy. The question is whether we use those tools responsibly or let them corrupt us into becoming something we don't want to be. She explained that similar activations were being documented across human space, but always in small numbers and usually among people who had no idea what was happening to them. Most activated humans simply noticed that alien creatures seemed unusually calm around them, or that alien traders were more willing to negotiate fairly. They had no idea they were unconsciously broadcasting dominant signals that triggered submission responses. The alien governments are starting to connect the dots, Admiral Foster said. They're beginning to realize that humanity's rapid expansion and diplomatic success might not be due to our superior negotiating skills or military technology. Some of them are concerned about the implications of a species that can unconsciously command obedience from other races. Alex turned back to face her. What does this mean for me? For other people like me? That's what we're trying to figure out. The genetic sequence seems to be more common in people from frontier worlds, agricultural backgrounds, places where humans live in smaller communities and face regular environmental challenges. It's as if our unknown benefactors designed the activation triggers to respond to conditions similar to whatever world we originally came from. Admiral Foster stood and moved to join Alex at the porthole. We need to understand more about these activations, about how they work and what they're really designed to do. More importantly, we need to find out who gave us these gifts and what they expected in return. That's where you come in. She handed Alex a new set of orders, sealed with classification markers he'd never seen before. You're being reassigned to a special research division. Your mission will be to help us locate and study other activated humans, while searching for any clues about our true origins. It's voluntary, but Alex, you might be the key to understanding one of the greatest mysteries in human history. Alex took the orders, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. A few months ago, he'd been a failed cadet who couldn't even command respect from his classmates. Now, he was apparently part of an ancient genetic program designed to make humans the dominant species in the galaxy. There's one more thing you need to know, Admiral Foster said as she prepared to leave. We've been monitoring long-range sensor arrays for unusual activity. Recently, we've detected artificial signals coming from regions of space beyond our current exploration boundaries. The signals use mathematical patterns that show striking similarities to the genetic sequences we've found in activated humans. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. You think they're still out there? The ones who moved us to Earth? I think, Admiral Foster said quietly, that our story is just beginning. And people like you might be the reason they've been waiting for us. To find them. Alex spent 3 days alone in his quarters after Admiral Foster left, staring at the sealed orders and trying to process everything he'd learned about humanity's hidden history. The genetic sequence in his DNA, the ancient alien manipulation, the possibility that their unknown benefactors were still out there somewhere, waiting. It was almost too much to believe, except that the evidence was right there in his own experiences with the predators. He kept thinking about the shadow hounds on Kepler 186F, how they had approached him with curiosity instead of aggression. At the time, he'd thought it was just luck or maybe some quirk of their behavior. Now he understood that they had been responding to chemical signals his body was producing without his knowledge, signals that marked him as a dominant predator worthy of respect. Captain Torres knocked on his door on the 3rd day, looking concerned. Alex had missed his duty shifts and hadn't been eating in the mess hall with the rest of the crew. Dr. Vasquez was worried that the stress of meeting with so many alien delegations had affected his mental health. Torres wanted to know if Alex needed to talk to someone or if he should request medical assistance. Alex appreciated their concern, but he couldn't explain what was really troubling him without violating the classification levels on what Admiral Foster had told him. Instead, he thanked Captain Torres for checking on him and promised to return to his normal duties while he considered his options. But the truth was, Alex wasn't sure he had any real options. The orders Admiral Foster had given him represented a complete change in his life's direction. No more simple survey missions, no more quiet days cataloging plant samples and watching alien wildlife from a safe distance. If he accepted the assignment, he would become part of a secret program studying the most significant discovery in human history. The alternative was to decline the assignment and request a transfer back to routine survey work. But Admiral Foster had made it clear that wouldn't really solve anything. Other activated humans were being discovered regularly now, and the alien governments were starting to ask uncomfortable questions about humanity's true nature. Whether Alex participated or not, these revelations were going to change everything. He thought about his parents back on New Horizon, still growing vegetables in their greenhouse domes and living the simple life he'd been so eager to escape. They had no idea their son had become a person of interest to alien civilizations across the galaxy. Part of him wanted to go home, to pretend none of this had ever happened, and return to the quiet agricultural world where his biggest concern had been helping with the tomato harvest. But Alex knew he couldn't go backward. The genetic activation couldn't be turned off, and the knowledge of what he represented couldn't be forgotten. More importantly, if Admiral Foster was right about the signals they'd detected from unexplored space, humanity might be on the verge of making contact with whoever had originally moved them to Earth. That was too significant to walk away from. Alex finally opened the sealed orders on the 4th day. The assignment was to report to a classified research facility on Luna, where he would work with a team of scientists and other activated humans to study the genetic modifications and search for clues about their origins. The facility was hidden, beneath the moon's surface, completely off the official records of any government agency. Dr. Chen, the geneticist who had originally discovered the dormant sequences, would be his primary contact. The team also included activated humans from various backgrounds, a mining engineer from the asteroid colonies who could command the loyalty of hostile alien traders, a diplomatic aide who had accidentally prevented 3 separate wars by her, unconscious influence over alien negotiators, and a frontier scout whose reports of peaceful contact with previously aggressive species had puzzled xenologists for years. The mission parameters were broader than anything Alex had ever seen. They were to investigate reports of activated humans throughout human space, document the full range of abilities and effects, and search for any evidence of ongoing contact with the original genetic engineers. Most importantly, they were to prepare humanity for the possibility that their unknown benefactors might return. Alex realized that accepting this assignment meant giving up any hope of a normal life. He would be part of a secret program that might continue for decades, studying mysteries that most of humanity didn't even know existed. His family wouldn't understand why he couldn't come home for visits or explain what he was really doing in his letters. His former classmates from the academy would never know that their dismissed survey specialist had become involved in the most important research project in human history. But the alternative was to let someone else take on this responsibility, while he went back to cataloging plants and pretending he didn't know the truth about what he was. Alex had never thought of himself as particularly brave or ambitious, but he couldn't live with that kind of willful ignorance now. On the 5th day, Alex made his decision. He activated his personal communicator and sent a coded message to Admiral Foster's office using the encryption protocols she had provided. 3 words. Assignment accepted, sir. The response came back within hours. A transport ship would arrive at the Pathfinder's location in 2 days to collect Alex and take him to Luna. He was to pack only personal items and prepare for an assignment of indefinite duration. All his official records would be transferred to the classified division, meaning that Alex Rodriguez would effectively disappear from the normal military bureaucracy. Alex spent his last day aboard the Pathfinder, saying goodbye to the crew members who had become his friends. Captain Torres shook his hand and told him he was proud to have served with someone who was clearly destined for important things. Dr. Vasquez gave him a copy of all their research data from Kepler 186F, saying she had a feeling he might need it for whatever he was doing next. Neither of them knew the truth about where Alex was going or why, but both seemed to understand that his encounters with the alien predators had marked the beginning of something significant. Alex wished he could explain everything to them, but the classification restrictions were absolute. They would have to wonder about what had happened to their quiet survey specialist who had somehow attracted the attention of alien civilizations. The transport ship that arrived to collect Alex was unlike any vessel he'd seen before. Clearly military, but with modifications and equipment that suggested it was used for missions that didn't appear in any official records. The pilot introduced herself as Commander Rivera and explained that she regularly transported personnel and materials for the Classified Research Division. As the transport pulled away from the Pathfinder, Alex watched his first real home in space disappear into the darkness. He was leaving behind the simple life of a survey specialist and embracing a role he never could have imagined when he left New Horizon as an unremarkable farm kid hoping to see the galaxy. Commander Rivera briefed Alex during the journey to Luna, explaining what he could expect at the research facility. The team he would be joining had been working together for 3 years, making slow but steady progress in understanding the genetic modifications and their implications. They had identified over 200 activated humans throughout human space, each displaying slightly different aspects of the same basic traits. The facility itself was a marvel of engineering, built into natural caves beneath Luna's surface, and equipped with the most advanced research equipment available. Alex would have access to genetic analysis tools, xenobiology databases, and communication systems that could reach every human colony in known space. More importantly, he would be working with people who understood exactly what he was experiencing. As Luna grew larger in the transport's viewports, Alex thought about the incredible journey that had brought him from his family's greenhouse domes to the most classified research project in human space. 6 months ago, he had been a failed cadet hoping to find some purpose in simple survey work. Now he was about to help uncover the truth about humanity's origins and prepare for possible contact with the beings who had shaped their destiny. The farm kid from New Horizon had become someone with the potential to change the course of human history. Alex just hoped he was ready for whatever they would discover in the depths of Luna's hidden laboratories, and what those discoveries might mean for humanity's future among the stars. The transport began its approach to the secret docking facility, and Alex Rodriguez prepared to begin the most important work of his life.